do that. And thank you for the last minute move over to this Zoom room. I really appreciate it. We tested it earlier in the week because Marie made me the host. Didn't realize that you can't have two meetings happening on the same account in the same room. I guess I wasn't sure she was using the same room. But anyway, we're here. We're here today. So I am coming to you from Newcastle, which is the beautiful land of the Awabakal people. And yeah, even though it's miserable today, I feel very privileged to live where I live. So thank you. Now today, we're going to talk about success. Hear from clients who have completed their ACES assessments. Now, Sue isn't here, but we'll see if we can get her a bit later. But I would like to start, and I'm sorry to embarrass you, Margie from Bernardo's. I finished their assessment last week. First of all, Margie, thank you for hosting me. Here's Sue. Thank you for hosting me. It was a real privilege to do your assessment over those 4 days. I actually got to speak to people in person. It was so nice. Did a trip to Mudgee, didn't get to drink any wine, but next time. My husband and I are already planning on going back. And I don't know if you want to add any, hi Sue, add anything later in the session if you would like about how you found your assessment and your assessor. But can we have a round of applause for Bernardo's who got 100% first go?
Wow,
Yeah.
Some guys.
Yeah, great job. I've only ever given one 100%. So now I've given 2.
Very impressive.
Yes, I called Marie that morning and I said, I think I'm going to do it. And she said, well, they must be good if you're going to do it. So well done. Super impressed. Okay, so Sue, thank you for joining us. We've got Sue and David here and Margie now who have completed their assessments. So we've sent them some questions to see if they can share some of their learnings with you. If there was anything that they were surprised about, if there were things that they thought were, you know, different to what they expected, so that, you know, we all like to be forewarned is forearmed. Isn't that how it goes? I always get it back to front. So forewarned is forearmed, that we know what to expect. So I'm going to pick on David first, if that's okay, because I didn't do your assessment. So I'm keen to hear about how you found it. So some of the questions that Marie, I think, put to you was, you know, what key success factors did you think came into play for your assessment? How did you engage your team? Were there any surprises? How was your process after your assessment? Yeah. So do you want to just give us a little bit of background about Glebe House, first of all, David, and then talk us through your assessment process?
Sure. So, like I said, my name's David McAllister. I'm the manager of Glebe House. I've been manager for the last 2 years. I took over manager at COVID hit. So I've had learned different skill sets along the way. We're a 12-week residential program, AOD service that helps men transitioning from custody, addiction into healthy living. We've been working at the accreditation process probably, we had our policies reviewed probably 3-4 years ago, and coming up to the last 18 months, we've engaged the Highwire Group as consultants, and we worked with Marie for the last 18 months, and it's been one of the most rewarding times. Again, we were assessed by Standards Wise from Adelaide, a virtual assessment. Ideally, we would have loved them to come and do a site visit, but out of Adelaide, weren't able to get here. And we also got 100% first go, which was really good, and really impressed with all the effort. Small service, we had like 5 staff. And a big factor for us that key success is to start early, engage with everybody in the service, our clients, past and present, our board, our stakeholders, etc. Finding that, like again, we were looking at this before I was manager. We were looking at our policy reviews, for the last 18 months, we've been, as a team, we have a staff meeting once a week. It goes for 3 hours on a Wednesday, and we'll read the policies and procedures, like a section of them every staff meeting. So, and discuss them to make sure everybody's understanding of what they are. And one thing that I found really beneficial was when Marie and the Highway Group, we got them to review our policies and procedures, and we could have left them the way they were, but we aligned them to the 8 standards. So Marie's aligned our policies to the standards, which made it real easy to, especially around the gathering evidence, because I'm basically doing all the evidence gathering, input from the staff. But I'm going to the policy. I know I've read them dozens of times over the last 18 months. We've read a lot of that. So we lined up our policies to the standards. And look, I found one thing that we found is, as a group, we could identify, we can look at areas that are in the service where there are gaps. And Marie was really good, especially around helping us develop our policies and procedures, our strategic operational plans, risk management, risk registers. Like, we had a lot of this stuff in place already, just needed to be sharpened up. And again, business continuity plans, and you've got COVID safe plans put on top of that. So that was some of the factors of success for us. And engaging the team, like I was saying before, we have a weekly team meeting for 3 hours. We discuss the policies, procedures every week. I did start off a while back to saying to staff, "Can you read these?" And I said, and next meeting, say, "Have you read them?" They go, "Oh no, sorry." So I said, it's probably my control. Well, I go, "Well, let's read them together." And so I get a clear understanding. I know you've read them. I don't have to read them again, but I've read them. We're going to read them and discuss them, and we'll say and ask things like, "What does that mean?" And so, and all that, like small service, five staff, and we're in a meeting and we're reading them, discussing them, and from that feedback, we're able to get identify areas. And the staff, my biggest probably fear was that accreditation meant if you didn't get accreditation, you don't get funding. Again, so and some of the feedback that I got from the assessor was that to make sure that we can comply with all the standards, and he agreed that we did. But what I tend to do is I go add, and staff feedback for that was we're very busy now, and every week I bring something else. It'd be, let's look at the operational plan. Let's look at the risk management plan on top of the policies and procedures that we're reading. So I needed to make sure the staff were, and myself were able to sort of identify if there's any, any stresses within the system. Again, small service, and we have clinical supervision. I come into the service and I'll identify staff and making sure they're okay. I read the case notes of the staff for the clients, so I can, in reading the case notes, I can tell about the clients and the staff just by the writing of that. Was there any surprises? No, not really. Well, surprised at 100% in first go. Yeah, that was a surprise. Like, even though along the way we were assured that yes, you're doing great, you've got a great service. It's and Marie was giving us, again, people are saying this is great, but until I actually got the pass, it was sort of like a big relief. And the feedback from the assessor, like I said, is basically just make sure you can do what you say, and because I tend to add too much. Feedback from the staff was that, so we were able to identify that. And the biggest benefit for our organisation was that we're strengthened as a service, and by our commitment to ongoing quality improvements, enabling us to deliver the best service for our clients, our stakeholders, and the returns for our funders. And it sets us in a good place to sort of, in the next 3 years, to sort of build, continue to quality improvement. As we got from Marie, again, I can't advocate for her, for that Highwire group enough. That was fantastic, the amount of work and the information that we got, and basically letting us know that we are on track. We are doing it already. It was about gathering the information, because we have information, what we do and what we can prove that we do. That was an important facet as well. So pretty much that's us. So if anybody's got any questions, happy to answer.
Thanks, David. So, when you talk about gathering the evidence and engaging staff, I mean, I know that those are, the two key points really that probably people have challenges around. I just have to say that, when we start looking at evidence, is that you can tell pretty quickly whether people actually get the standards and that they know what they're looking for, because sometimes I have seen evidence that's got 14 different pieces against one of the indicators, but it actually doesn't include a policy or have really the first high level documents or anything that could be relatively close to it. So yeah, that's the starting point. And if we see really good evidence at the beginning, it really does set the tone for the rest of the assessment. Now we've lost Sue. She was, I don't know what's happened there. She was going to speak for me. I'll tell you a little bit about their assessment. So they're at Port Stephens. So again, that was one I got to do in person just before we went into lockdown. And again, small service, but when you walk in someplace and there's just a bit of a buzz going. There was the first day I was there, they were a whole group of ladies putting together food hampers, and there was a lot there for them to put together. And on the second day, was at the second site, people were there making sandwiches, and I was like, why are you making all of these sandwiches? But they take them to the school across the road for morning tea, so that kids that come to school without breakfast would have a little lunch snack. And they did that a couple of times a week. So pretty amazing stuff. Their assessment went very well. They had 3 or 4 items on their action plan, which they've completed well before they needed to. So they did a very good job as well. They were very nervous. So even though I have said over and over again that I'm not a red pen auditor and it is a collaborative process. And if I ended up saying to Sue, if you don't understand a question or we can't find something, I'll ask it a different way, so that, because the way that I communicate is not necessarily what that person might hear in that time. So we do try and get to what we need to get to in whatever way we need to get to. So Sonia and Kylie, I might pick on you for a sec if we can. So your assessment's not finished. So poor Youth Off the Streets. We started that in July. Never ever thinking that we would still be in lockdown in October. So I'm doing their final site assessment and talking to young people next Wednesday on site. I'm really looking forward to closing that one out. I'm sick of looking at your report. So do you want to just give us a little rundown on how you found your assessment? Because yours was all online except for this last bit, which is very different to face-to-face.
Yes, Sonia, you drove most of it. You want to kick off, and then I can say from a sort of frontline delivery.
Yeah, look, it feels like ancient history. Look, I think, just coordination amongst everybody, getting all the email. I had to put everything into the Outlook calendar, making sure all the appointments were lined up in the calendar, so everyone knew when they were going to be on Zoom for Lisa. just coordinating that, from like from a remote perspective. But yeah, we got through it. Yeah.
And I think what I was just going to say, I think what helped, we used the BNG portal. So we were able to track our progress. We knew how we were doing. And Sonia, yes, had her whip out. And we sort of had each of the elements of ACES had its own kind of work stream, which was being sort of separately managed, had its own sort of project management or working group, if you like, that was sort of working. They knew what they had to deliver. You know, it was all very trackable. People were really responsive. They knew what they had to do. But I think from a service delivery, so I sit on the client services side and I sit across our 2 client refuges and outreach casework team and transitional housing. And so I just have really loved this process. I actually, just before this meeting, started to get a bunch of photos through from Katie, one of our refuge manager, because they're making the place look amazing. And it's just this commitment to continually just, you know, what you can do to go a little bit above and beyond to make our spaces, you know, really inviting and welcoming for different cohorts. We've always done that, but it just gives us that sort of ongoing focus on improvement and looking for areas for improvement, and then seeing that followed up and getting some traction. And the whole team, the caseworkers, the youth workers, I think we've instilled that thinking with them all now and really invited them all to share their ideas, and also made it part of all of our client meetings and client house meetings, and just getting that feedback loop, that evaluation and consultation and feedback with our young people, and making sure we're really listening to them and delivering the best service that we can. So it's been a great journey, and we're very much looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday, Lisa, in the flesh.
Yeah,
And
was there anything that didn't meet your expectation or was different that you thought it would be during that process?
No, I think it was really, I think you coming out and sort of doing that session with the team, explaining to everyone what to expect. And I think just making everyone feel very comfortable that this isn't about a red pen. It's about supporting the sector to sort of develop and improve. And I think that's, when you look at it with that lens, not, you know, aren't we going to get funded, although that is the, you know, the ultimate motivator. But I think it's more saying, you know, we really want to get everyone over the line here and improve the quality of services and the reporting and the outcomes of getting all the governance systems and structures in place. So then they become less of a distraction. We get to focus, once that stuff is in place, we just really get to focus on clients and service delivery.
You know, and as you've heard me say a number of times, we don't do compliance. It just is the way that we do business. So once the systems are in place, it's just about reviewing and monitoring and upkeep, so maintenance on those things. I do want to acknowledge Sonia and Margie around the scheduling of people. Oh, Lord have mercy. I know that it must have been extremely difficult, you know, for 2 large organizations, but it's often difficult for small organizations as well, just to get people to set aside an hour and a half in their diary in order to have that conversation. And, you know, we know that we need to move things around. I learned something from my 3 days on Zoom with Youth Off the Streets, and that was that I needed to schedule myself a couple more breaks because it's very exhausting to do it all day on Zoom. And I don't know why. I was more tired at those days than I was when I drove to Mudgee and saw people face to face. And it was it's a lot. I think I've told you that my husband said to me, "You're very quiet," one night, and I'm like, "Shh, no talking. Don't talk to me. No more talking." So thank you, Sonia and Kylie. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep.
Now, Margie, the star of the show, can I ask you to unmute for a moment?
Yeah.
So one thing that Margie and I talked about, and probably I hadn't been very clear about in the information sessions, is that the people that get 100%, the 2 that I've done, and now David at Glebe House, but I didn't do that. They get recommended to DCJ for certification immediately. If there are items on your quality improvement plan or your action plan, we don't do a recommendation until those are closed. So it's not like some of the other audits that you can have them on a quality improvement plan and we check it next time. That's not how this framework works. So until those items are closed, we don't do the recommendation. So it's very important that if you have items on your continuous improvement and quality action plan, that you think carefully about what you can do in the 6 months that allotted. So I did an assessment for an organization and they were going to scope, implement, beta test, and have running a new HR system in 6 months. Now, nobody's going to do that. Sorry. There was way too much on there. So think about what your actions are to address those things, and that that you can do them in the time frame. So generally, if I get an action plan back before lodgement and I think it's not doable, we'll have a conversation about how we can amend the language so that it's achievable within that 6 months. So that was something that Margie flagged to me that I probably hadn't been as clear on as I should have been. So thanks for that. I appreciate it. So Ms. 100%, how do you feel a week out?
Look, it's really hard to come down from that. It was quite a surprise and also a relief. But I think from my perspective, it's all about how that will impact on the staff's sense of confidence and motivation with their engagement with our clients. And they are just so motivated and re-energized, if you like, and feel really affirmed around the work that they do. And from my perspective, that's been the greatest outcome and the reason why we participate in these kind of accreditations, certifications, not so much audits, because although it's a learning experience, it's also quite really difficult to shift people's perspective that it's like a test and you either pass or fail it or comply or not comply. And I think that particularly Lisa, as our assessor, did an extremely good job at enabling people to feel really comfortable. She has a very personable style, which gives people, opportunities to feel heard, and without having to feel that they have to be overly technical in their responses. And the success lay in preparation.
So how long did it take from the time that you started really
so we
mapping
actually
evidence?
started, yeah, look, I'll just give you a bit of background. I actually knew nothing about auditing, assessments, accreditation until January this year, and had come out of a lifetime in out-of-home care. So I was aware of audits, but not so much anything else. And in Barnardos, we have 5 homelessness services across the entire state. And as you heard, Lisa went out to Mudgee, but we also have them in Queanbeyan, Canberra, and a couple in Sydney. So what we decided to do was, given the communication from DCJ, the actual commencement for planning around the assessment commenced in April 2020. We started I came on board in January, and at that point, we started to track our actual evidence gathering. Prior to that, there had been a group that had really struggled to coordinate all the work that was required to at least evidence or provide the paper evidence for the for the multiple standards and substandards. So it was pretty, I think the team were finding it fairly overwhelming. Not to say that they were trying. So what we did was we, and just interrupt me at any time, but our biggest concern was about how do we communicate this to all staff and to our other stakeholders, clients, and the board, particularly around engaging with this and bringing them along on what we call the journey, the SHS journey. And we thought the only way forward was to be strengths-based, so focus on what we did well and to keep focusing on that and enhancing what we needed to improve upon. So that was that. We had regular meetings, we had SharePoint access sites to build our evidence base, we had reviews of the evidence, both individually, team and organisationally. We had, we tried to alleviate any concerns around the type of assessment we were having. So it was great to have Lisa or Highway come in and explain further and give a broader context about how we might proceed with it. We used every template that Highwire provided with us and some more. We actually practiced with those templates. We met and went through a lot of questions that we thought might come up, but didn't necessarily come up. We identified
Tricky.
Oh, and it was a case of what do you feel that you would like to work on right now, and what do you feel confident about? And staff would do their own group think about it and then share it around. We did a lot of comms around engagement of clients. We put together a comms package that's written. It was written with graphics to try and, get them on board and interested in communicating their experiences. I did a presentation to the board. There was lots and lots of information gathering along the way and checking in, because obviously people are doing this as well as their day-to-day tasks, and acknowledging that we had to be able to be flexible around that, because you put a meeting together and no one would turn up.
And Margie, I want to say too that let everybody know that the feedback from the field, from both Auburn that I did virtually and Mudgee, was that they really appreciated the continued communication, not just with this framework, but everything, around assessment, audit, safeguarding, and that they appreciated the road shows that were put together. And, they called Margie their superstar. So there was a real genuine commitment that you could see to that communication and consultation that really just started from the evidence and was just confirmed along the way. So it made my job a really lovely experience.
And it was certainly from everybody's feedback, which is still occurring right now, was that people were surprised at how easy it all seemed. The actual site assessments were really fabulous.
Yeah.
The lead up was grueling, but the actual site assessments, and that's actually a reflection, I think, of the preparation
100%.
that went along incrementally to that point. So people were ready when Lisa arrived. And did I think we were ready? Not even the night before, not throughout the entire assessment. So that's carrying that sort of sense of, will we be, good enough, in the sense that there's always something you can learn. There's always something that does need tweaking. There's absolutely lots that we're reflecting on that we need to take away and revamp. And we're already starting to track that out with our next updated, what we call Equip Quality Improvement Plan, or PIP, whichever you prefer. So we're using that momentum now to move on to the next stage. And although it won't be as intense, we want to hold on to that sense of achievement for our teams and our clients.
Exactly. Thank you, Margie. I also have to say that came up during Bonita is that they have 7 quality standards that they need to comply with. So it's not their first rodeo. And there was a lot of audit fatigue given everything that had happened over the last year. So you guys did a great job. Sue, welcome back. Just in time. Just unmute. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, our internet dropped out. And I know I'd been late to join because I didn't see the email with the other
Yes,
link.
I do
was just
apologize for
late.
that, but thank you for joining us. So this is
Oh, yeah.
Sue. She's the manager of Port Stevens Family and Neighborhood Services. As I said, I got to do theirs in person before lockdown. Sue, I was talking about arriving at your sites and all the activity that was happening with the food hampers and the sandwiches for the kids, and it really did just give me a true sense of your service. So Sue, tell us a little bit about how you found your assessment. Was there any surprises? Anything you think anybody should know? What was the biggest challenge before or during or after?
I think, look, it feels so long ago, even though I know it wasn't, but it does because we've sort of done it. And now,
Yes, I did let everyone know you already actually did your quality improvement plan before your deadline. So that was really good.
yeah. Maybe it was easier than I thought. And the actual assessment was, well, it was actually a pleasurable experience, which was not what we expected. And yeah, like I suppose how you approached it, Lisa, it was all strength-based, and also it simplified things because some of the questions, when you sent the questions, some of the ones I read and thought, I don't know, I didn't know what you meant. I couldn't even understand what the questions were asking for, and that kind of did my head in a bit. But I found on the ground, during the assessment and all your suggestions and stuff for the 3% or 4% that we still had to do, was just very direct, very simple, and easy to get.
Yeah, and the language comes from the framework. It comes from DCJ framework. So, I'm really pleased to hear you say that about strengths-based and, simplifying things, because that's how you structure your practice. So it would be really a disjoint if we came in and had jargon and trying to speak auditor speak when, we're there to talk about your service and your practice. So so that's really good to hear that. Thank you. Was there anything that you were surprised about at all?
No, I don't think so. Only that part of the process was enjoyable and simple, and and it felt really worthwhile at that point. Whereas I suppose going through it and sorting out all the endless policies that we seem to need to have these days can really quite do your head in, especially in a pandemic. I'm sure everyone gets that's in this meeting. No surprises apart from positive surprise.
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge either in the lead up or during the assessment, do you think?
The biggest challenge was probably those policies that were a bit, or to me felt a bit, what's the word? Like, really, we have to have a policy for this, and a lot of we have to have a policy for this. I struggle with DCJ, just write one and we'll just adapt a bit. Like, why does every service have to do every single policy themselves? And I get we have to tailor it to our own service and own context, etc. But I think there can be a lot more of, and I know on the portal there's heaps of stuff, but there's heaps of stuff on the portal, which is a lot to sift through.
Yeah. Now remember, one of the standards is about sharing resources. So if you have interagency meetings where somebody's tasked to develop a policy and share it with them, that's a really great piece of evidence for that indicator. Hint, hint for people that haven't had their assessment yet. So yeah, we like to see that.
Yes.
You guys did a very good job. You also made me feel very welcome, and it was very pleasing to be able to go home at the end of the day.
We enjoyed having you, yeah, and we're glad it's done, yeah, and everyone did feel really proud about what we've done, about our service. We've always felt good about our actual service delivery to clients, and we know we have that covered and do that well. But I guess the biggest challenge for us was that back of office policy stuff and the business continuity and all those sort of, to me, less engaging policies.
I know you can see where your heart lies.
Yeah.
Definitely in service land. I also got to meet with PS Fans board, and one of the board members and I talked for a good 5 minutes about our love of Erstwilder brooches. So that was really fun. We both had one on that day. Mine was I think I had my kitty cat on with the glasses. She had a lovely, beautiful floral one. Thanks, Sue. Jillian, hi, welcome. You're on mute. Hi, Jillian.
I didn't receive the link to the personal meeting room.
I do apologize. It was last minute. I tried to log in to test it, and it worked last week, but not this week. So thank you. Jillian's from Women Up North Housing, up near where my birthplace, if you can believe that. Welcome, Jillian. We've got a few minutes. Do you want to talk a little bit about your assessment, how you found it? Were there any surprises, and what your biggest challenges were?
Look, yes, there were surprises, and I suppose the surprises for us was the extent that, well, it was more like the site work that we had to get done. So that was really helpful that we got some information from Murray, who did our assessment, and she gave us some information which said exactly what they were going to be looking for in our HR files and some bits and pieces like that. So we had a bit of extra site work while we were doing, and just before the assessment, and that was a little bit last minute. We did all of our policy and procedures. We just downloaded the ACES policy and procedures information, and I actually hired an administration worker to work with me to do the policy and procedure, and our IT worker as well. So it was basically the three of us. At the time we were doing an IT transformation, so it was really a good timing for us. So we were setting up new systems anyway. So because for me the big thing is you've got to get rid of all that old policy and procedure. Because the confusing thing is if you've got old stuff and new stuff and you're trying to sort it all out. So it was really much simpler. We just set up a whole new file, a whole new place for the file to sit, and set up a whole new policy and procedure location and a new link. And I sent through the first lot of policy and procedure before we made any changes to it to all the staff and the board, and divided it up amongst the different groups, and just kept on asking for feedback. But in the meantime, the admin worker, the IT worker, and I were just writing the policy and procedure. So we started basically afresh with most of our policy. We had the most trouble writing our BCU. It was was really confusing, and then of course now we've written it again. Well, we've written a whole new section to it again for COVID anyway, so we had to redo that. My big surprise was that we started we did our assessment in November 2020, and I thought I was being really strategic about when we would get through, and that I thought that the accreditation, the certificate would be dated on the date that we actually were through the accreditation. But that wasn't the case. So we got, our final notice was in 2021, but our certificate actually said 2020. So from a strategic point of view, as far as preparing for DCJ's next contract round, that was a bit of a disappointment for us.
I'm really surprised to hear that. Before you came in, we had a conversation about that certificates are not issued until the final activity report is done, that the final report's lodged in the improvement
no,
plan.
look,
So that's
Mary-
surprising to me.
Mari chased it up for me as well.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
it's just something to be aware of. I mean, once we got the policy and procedure done, that was probably 75% of the work, 80% of the work, maybe 90% of the work. The rest is, just a little bit of running around tidying up, making sure there are no trip hazards when your assessor comes in, and as Sue said, it was really heartening. It's a wonderful process in the end. It makes you feel so great and proud. I mean, plus the fact that, my God, it's just such a process that, you're exhausted and over it by the time you get through, but it's a really wonderful thing to get all that feedback. So you get the feedback from staff and stakeholders, and it was really positive, and that made us feel really good, because you think you're doing well, but now you are, and we've been much more successful with grants. I don't know if that's to do with having ACES, but I think it makes you feel more comfortable when you're writing grants to be able to say that you've got that accreditation, or when you're asking for donations, like, you've got a bottom line about how good you are.
Absolutely. I think it really does make a big difference. I do a lot of grant writing as well, and I do see a big difference. People that have some sort of standards accreditation or assessment than those that don't.
So, I mean, before I worked here, I worked for Department Federal Human Services, and it was one thing about working for government is that the policy and procedures are very straightforward and set. Everything's got a template, everything's got a process, and there's a lot of safety in that. And I found working in the not-for-profit sector, it was like there was nothing underneath you, So I feel really relieved.
Well done.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and thank you to ACES. They were very helpful, when we had to make a couple of little changes. Didn't take much. I don't know, I think we got something like 97%, and we had to do our business continuity plan again. I think that was what we had to do. It was basically our business continuity plan. It was good. Mari was really helpful too. She gave she actually was who spoke to all of our stakeholders in the beginning. We had some meetings and she came and spoke to stakeholders. That set the intention for everybody. Everybody knew what was going on. And then I would send out regular emails with impending doom. So many days till the assessment, and giving people tasks in association with that. Mari's presentation was so good that I delivered it to the state when the pilot was on. And
That's great feedback.
and it was really well received, very informative, and so I think Highwire have got a very good handle on making the assessments user friendly.
So much. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us today. I guess, I hope that's useful to people that have not quite had their assessment yet. And speaking of trip hazards and things like that when you're on site, I also have to say that Margie gave Mudgy a heads up about food. So food's very important to me. And I am celiac. So Kylie and Sonia know that I've structured my whole day down there next Wednesday so that I can go to my favorite donut place in Surrey Hills and have scarf waffles at lunchtime. And I'm very much looking forward to going to Bathurst so I can eat at the Hub and get their amazing iced tea that's just around the corner from John's place. So, we have to take these little treasures where we find them. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Just a reminder, when we were talking about the resources, if you go to the Highwire website and go to the top right-hand page, drop down, it says resources, and then there's an ACES client login. You can download all of those resources at any time if you want a refresher or if you just want to use them for guiding practice. Remember, one of your indicators is to undertake internal audit. So some of those are probably good resources to do internal audit, which is one of the issues that we see come up time and time again. So thank you very much, everyone. Congratulations to everyone that's gotten through. Congratulations to Glebe House and Bernardo's and your 100% result. And I look forward to seeing some of you again very shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
And thanks to everyone
Bye.
that spoke. Bye.